tonight on NewsCenter. In the limelight are AI, science, and technology. Korea's public and private sectors will work hand in hand to boost the AI industry with government investment of over $840 million by 2020. President Park will oversee the development herself. U.S. President Barack Obama signs an executive order implementing North Korea's sanctions designed to freeze the assets of anyone who breaks the international blockade on Pyongyang and target its human rights abuses. And Seoul shares close at the highest level so far this year, and the local currency strongest against the greenback as risk appetite revive after the U.S. Fed reduced the number of rate hikes expected this year. NewsCenter begins right now. It is 9 a.m. in New York, 1 p.m. in London, and 10 on a Thursday night here in Seoul. Hello and welcome to our viewers all across the globe. You're watching Arirang News Center. AlphaGo was a wake-up call, says President Park Geun-hye, referring to the latest Baduk or Go tournament between a professional Baduk player with 18 world titles and an artificial intelligence supercomputer, which ended in a 4-1 victory for Machine. The president was highlighting the importance of developing a competitive edge in emerging technologies, innovation in information communication technology, including artificial intelligence. Now, to coordinate these efforts, the Korean leader is launching a new council which she will chair herself. Our presidential office correspondent Song Ji-sun starts us off.
Korea is #1 in the world when it comes to R&D, with its investment amounting to over 4% of its GDP as of 2014. But its productivity is just a third of the United States. President Park thinks the inefficiency is because the country lacks a control tower for distributing and managing its R&D resources, so she will launch a new strategic science and technology meeting that she will chair herself. The meeting will complement the work of the existing National Science and Technology Council, which coordinates the needs of related ministries based on demand. The president made her announcement at a meeting on fostering intelligence information technology, where she stressed that there is no need to fear the rapid development of artificial intelligence, adding that humanity can benefit from what it has to offer. Park said that AI, which could affect practically all sectors across society, has great potential to create new jobs and industries. She said the government will build platforms for the private sector, including a research center and infrastructure for big data processing, to enable Korea to take another leap into the fourth industrial revolution as an ICT powerhouse. President Park says innovation is the key in research and development, and to support that, the government will pay attention to what private researchers need and focus its efforts on deregulation. Song Ji-sun, Arirang News.
Now, riding on President and public interest in artificial intelligence, the Korean government has laid out new plans to further develop that industry. It'll invest more than $850 million in the sector by year 2020. But will the new measures prove to be effective in boosting this country's emerging technology sector? We turn to our tech correspondent, Kim Ji-yeon.
Korea's Science Ministry stepped up efforts to support the country's AI development and related industries engaging in the intelligent information technology field, which not only includes AI but also big data, Internet of Things, and cloud service. The Ministry of Science, ICT, and Future Planning says it will invest about $852 million over the next 5 years and induce $2 billion in private investment in the field. The ministry plans to support a civilian-led AI research center with some of the country's biggest tech companies, including Samsung and LG Electronics, telecommunication carriers SK Telecom and KT, the country's leading internet portal Naver, and global automaker Hyundai Motor.
We're aiming to bring scattered resources into one place in order to boost the competitiveness of Korean businesses in a short period of time.
The ministry plans to provide financial support for core R&D projects once a research institute is set up to build a viable business ecosystem where researchers can spin off and create AI-related startup afterwards. A local expert thinks the government's initiative is steered toward the right direction and that it'll gear more investors toward AI development.
Although it may be too late to compete with early adopters like the US tech giant Google, Korean AI companies will be able to pick up its pace soon by luring its great IT manpower pool back to the country.
The expert also expects Korean IT companies to be more competent than others by incorporating AI and big data in the medical services sector and narrow the technological gap between Korea and the US and the intelligent information sector, which currently stands at 2.4 years. Kim Jeon, Arirang News.
Internal divisions are threatening the country's political parties as they gear up for the 20th legislative election coming up in less than 4 weeks' time. The pressure is building up as the clock winding down. Our political correspondent Kim Young-gil reports.
At the ruling Saenuri Party, the so-called pro-Pak faction of lawmakers loyal to President Park Geun-hye is under fire for its candidate nomination process. Most pro-Pak lawmakers have been given the go-ahead to run in the April 13th election without primaries, while non-Pak members have been left out. Saenuri Chairman Kim Moo-sung, who also heads the non-Pak faction, boycotted Thursday's Supreme Council meeting in protest after the nomination committee, controlled by Pak loyalists, refused to reconsider the decision. Kim's action drew the ire of Kim Tae-ho, a key pro-Pak member.
It was immature of Chairman Kim to boycott the Thursday meeting when he is the leader of the Saenuri Party, but we will go ahead with the meeting to discuss pending issues.
During the meeting, Supreme Council members said they would demand an apology from Kim, but Kim has refused. Later in the day, another member of the non-Pak faction, three-term lawmaker Jin Young, quit the party because he was left off the nomination list. He said that as someone who has been with the party for 20 years, he felt betrayed. He will now run as an independent. Over on the opposition side, the main opposition Minju Party of Korea is also keeping incumbent lawmakers off its nomination list, and it too is seeing the consequences. The party has eliminated 30 sitting lawmakers from its nomination list so far, which is 30% of its 105 seats in parliament. And on Thursday, first-term lawmaker Poo Jae-yeon, who was left off the nomination list, defected to the minor opposition People's Party. The People's Party had been considering a merger with Minju, but that plan has since lost one of its biggest advocates. Senior People's Party member Kim Han-gil, who had been at odds with co-leader An Cheol-soo over the merger, conceded defeat and announced he will not run in the election to take responsibility for failing to unite the Liberal bloc. Kim Young-gil, Arirang News.
U.S. President Barack Obama has issued an executive order imposing new sanctions on North Korea after its latest nuclear and ballistic missile tests. The sanctions are designed to freeze the assets of anyone who breaks the international blockade on North Korea, meaning even the few nations that do engage in trade with North Korea, such as China, will be discouraged from doing so. Our Park Ji-won has more.
U.S. President Barack Obama has signed an executive order hitting North Korea with a fresh set of sanctions in response to the North's January nuclear test and February missile launch. The White House said in a statement the executive order enables the U.S. to implement the latest UN Security Council resolution and a set of recently enacted U.S. sanctions against Pyongyang. The White House statement went on to say that the U.S. and the global community will not tolerate North Korea's illicit nuclear and ballistic missile activities and will continue to pressure North Korea until it comes into compliance with its international obligations. The new sanctions aim to cut off the Kim Jong-un regime's financial resources, including a new measure prohibiting the North's exportation of workers, which constitute a significant part of the regime's revenue. The sanctions also cover an extensive list of firms and individuals from North Korea's mining and energy industries, as well as those engaged in cyber terrorism and those who contribute to the North's human rights violations. The set of sanctions could also be applied to individuals or entities from third countries that have business relations or contracts with North Korean officials or government affiliate agencies subject to the sanctions. Moreover, the measures have also been applied to the Propaganda and Agitation Department of the North's ruling Workers' Party for the first time. In regard to these sanctions, South Korea welcomed the U.S. government's move.
The executive order shows Washington's will to strongly counter the continuous provocations from North Korea, including the recent nuclear test and missile launch. The Foreign Ministry highly appreciates such decision.
In addition to the latest UN resolution on Pyongyang and other independent punitive measures such as those imposed by the EU, the Foreign Ministry expects the U.S. sanctions to add more pressure on the North Korean regime. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
Well, China, however, expressed opposition to U.S.'s unilateral sanctions against North Korea, saying they could only raise tension in the region. As to whether China was worried that the secondary boycott clause included in the latest sanctions could affect, quote, normal business links between Chinese banks and North Korea, Beijing's Foreign Ministry spokesman said this was something China was watching carefully.
We have clearly stressed many times in meetings with the relevant country, any so-called unilateral sanctions imposed by a country should neither affect nor harm China's reasonable interests.
While China, North Korea's sole major ally, has signed up for tough new UN sanctions against North Korea, it has said repeatedly that sanctions are not the answer and that only a resumption of talks can resolve North Korea's nuclear weapons issue. Now, included on the U.S.'s new blacklist is North Korea's Propaganda and Agitation Department of the ruling Workers' Party for the very first time. Well, it's got many wondering, what is this party and why has it been blacklisted? Our Connie Kim explains.
North Korea's Propaganda and Agitation Department is a secretariat of the Central Committee that's in charge of propaganda campaigns and monitors all publications from the regime. It's known to be a critical organization directly linked to sustaining the reclusive regime and idolizing the Kim dynasty. Historically, this propaganda arm was where late Kim Jong-il, the father of the current North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, served to prove his leadership before being elevated as Pyongyang's new successor. Attention is geared at the Propaganda Agitation Department as Kim Yo-jong, Kim Jong-un's sister, is known to be working as a vice director there. Whether Kim Yo-jong will be included in the UN and South Korea's blacklists has been widely watched as she's believed to be handling the North's foreign currency funds. However, despite the significance it has on Pyongyang, experts doubt imposing sanctions on the department will have an effect.
The Propaganda and Agitation Department is contributing to human rights abuses by censoring materials that promote freedom of expression. As the propaganda arm is not on the forefront of dealing with external relations, imposing sanctions on the department has rather a symbolic significance.
Experts add it's hard to view the punitive measures on the Propaganda and Agitation Department as a sanction on Kim Yo-jong, as more information is needed to blacklist an individual. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
A North Korean vessel that's been blacklisted by UN Security Council Resolution 2270 is under surveillance by South Korea's Coast Guard as we speak, as that sails near South Korean waters. Now, they are closely monitoring the Orion Star, registered as Mongolian, and its progress in adherence to the Foreign Ministry's policy directive. Our Lee Ji-won has this story in development.
South Korea's Coast Guard said Thursday a blacklisted North Korean ship was detected going west through the South Sea. The Ministry of Public Safety and Security said the Orion Star freighter entered South Korean waters at 11:45 a.m. and is currently passing through waters near the city of Tongyang. The ship is registered as Mongolian and has not been found carrying any illegal cargo, but the South Korean Maritime Police is currently keeping a close eye on it. It is reported that the ship carries 9 North Koreans and 10 people of Chinese nationality and left Nampo, a southwest city of North Korea, to head to Cheongjin, a northeastern city of the state. The ship is one of 31 vessels that have been blacklisted by the UN as part of the current resolution punishing the regime for its latest nuclear test and long-range missile launch. 이지원, Arirang News.
Well, North Korea has said loud and clear that it will not abide by the latest international sanctions imposed on the regime and threatened of more nuclear tests and missile launches. So what if the reclusive state does in fact go ahead with further provocations and vary against the newest UNSC resolution? Well, Seoul's diplomat to the United Nations says that would mean another, even tougher than the latest toughest to date set of UNSC resolution. Our Foreign Affairs correspondent Kwon So-ah files this report.
In the event of another violation of UN sanctions by North Korea, an even stronger resolution than the one recently adopted would be taken up almost automatically, according to South Korea's top envoy to the UN, Oh Jun, Thursday.
If they go for another nuclear test or long-range missile test, I'm sure that the Security Council will take action again because there is what is called a trigger clause.
He added it's difficult to say which form the stronger sanctions would take, but that some sections in the latest resolution turned out to be weaker than initially expected. On the current resolution, Ambassador Oh says he has no doubt in that there will be very strong commitment.
This resolution is relatively young. I don't think there has been much of progress in implementation, but all the UN member states have shown their determination to support this Security Council resolution.
That also goes for North Korea's closest ally, China, as well as Russia. A recent example is Russia's biggest energy company, Gazprom's decision to stop doing business with the regime, saying any business links with North Korea could subject it to international sanctions. And for further talks on cooperation and following through with sanctions, South Korea's top envoy to the stalled six-party talks, Kim Hong-kyun, will meet with his Chinese counterpart Wu Da-wei in Beijing Friday.
The South Korea-China talks are expected to contribute to close cooperation between South Korea, the US and China in dealing with North Korea's nuclear issue, including the implementation of the UN resolution.
This comes as just a week ago, Seoul's chief nuclear envoy met with his US counterpart Sung Kim, putting their heads together for the same cause. Kwon So-ah, Arirang News.
It was an upbeat day on the local bourse here in Seoul, with the benchmark Kospi topping the psychologically significant 2,000 mark at one point in trading. Seoul shares and the Korean won closed at yearly highs today, following the U.S. Federal Reserve's move to reduce the number of interest rate hikes planned for this year. Market action here in Seoul today. Our Kim Min-ji reports.
Korean shares on the local currency both hit yearly highs on Thursday. Korea's benchmark Kospi gained nearly 0.7% on Thursday to close at just under the 1,990 mark, the highest level so far this year. The Kospi even topped the 2,000 level at one point in trading. And the Korean currency closed at over 1,173 won against the US dollar, up almost 1.7% from the previous day's close. This follows overnight gains on Wall Street in light of the Fed's decision to leave its key interest rate unchanged.
The committee decided to maintain its target range for the federal funds rate. This decision partly reflects the implications for the U.S. economy of the global economic and financial developments.
That means a current interest rate target of 0.25 to 0.5% will stay the same for now. On top of that, Fed officials are now calling for 2 rate hikes this year, down from the previously envisioned 4.
The Fed is taking what's going on in the global economy into consideration. Looking at the Fed's statement in the past and now, we can see it's changing from focusing on the local economy when deciding rates to risk management, like how global uncertainties will play out for the US economy and whether it will weaken the recovery momentum.
The Fed also revised down its growth forecast for the U.S. economy to 2.2% this year, down from its previous projection of 2.4%. The outlook for inflation was also cut to 1.2% by the year's end, down from a prior 1.6% call. The Fed said moderate economic expansion and continued job growth would accommodate rate hikes down the line, prompting many analysts to say a rate hike could be in the works in June. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
March marks the start of a new school year here in Korea. Not only does that mean new teachers, new friends, and new binders, it also means there's a marked increase in road accidents involving children. Now, in order to raise awareness of this issue as well as to prevent more unfortunate events, Korea has launched various programs and initiatives. Safe and Sound to School and Back. Our news feature tonight with Kwon Jang-ho.
It's a parent's worst nightmare. In 2014, almost 15,000 children under 12 years old were injured in road accidents in Korea, and among them, 52 were killed. Fortunately, the 2 in these videos were not seriously harmed. The academic year in Korea starts in March, and that's where there is a clear spike in the number of traffic accidents involving children. To raise awareness and alert drivers and parents alike about this issue, the government has kicked off various campaigns nationwide.
With the start of a new academic year, there are many new students, and for their safety, the National Police, Community Service Centers, and local district offices have all come together to mobilize this campaign.
This year, the Ministry of Public Safety and Security is increasing the number of designated school zones around the country. School zones are areas around schools that have strict speed and parking limitations. There are currently over 15,000 zones around the country, and they are enforced by police officers, traffic wardens, and CCTV cameras. Those found violating these restrictions are given hefty fines that are double the amount than ones imposed for the same offense committed elsewhere.
With young children, it is difficult to predict where they would move. Cars parked illegally can make it impossible to spot children who run to the streets, thus causing accidents.
Another campaign that has been introduced in recent years is the so-called walking bus program. The idea started in Australia in the 1990s, and it basically involves local children gathering at a designated residential spot and 2 adults taking them to school.
하나 옆으로 똑바로 줄 서. 아이고 잘하네. 예원아 앞에 보고 가야지. 넘어져.
I'm really happy about this program. There are a lot of cars and traffic lights here, but since the children are taken to school safely, I feel reassured, especially as a working mom.
And the results of these programs have been positive. The number of child deaths from road accidents in Korea have decreased over 85% since 2005. But compared to other countries, there is still more work to do. The OECD average of child pedestrian deaths is 0.34 per 100,000 people. Korea has 2.5 times that, and it is in fact the second highest amongst OECD countries.
In Korea, there are too many vehicles running in small areas, and so the likelihood of a car hitting a child in an accident is about 2 to 3 times higher than in other countries. The afternoon hours after school are especially of great concern.
In order to tackle this particular problem, a new program called Safe and Sound to School and Back is being run by Gyeonggi-do Province with its police department. More officers have been stationed around schools and sidewalks in the morning and afternoon school hours.
It's safer. I feel like they'll look after us, like guardians.
They are reassuring and nice. They make me feel proud, and they're the best.
In case of a problem, there are police officers right here who can help. Children might not be able to find their way to a police station, and they might not even be able to make phone calls, so having officers present is a very good idea.
The schools, parents and police are all working together
to try and make the streets more safe for the children. But they also say they need the help of drivers to take more responsibility in safer driving to really help cut down the number of accidents. Kwon Jang-ho, Arirang News.
A video has surfaced online and appears to show a missing Japanese journalist believed to have been captured by an Al-Qaeda affiliate in Syria. Bruce Harrison is live in the studio with me for more. Now, Bruce, has there been any direct confirmation that the man in this video is in fact Junpei Yasuda?
Well, sometimes, Kenyang, it takes a while to verify these videos. Japan's Chief Cabinet Secretary Yoshihide Suga said it appears to be the missing journalist, and the Japanese government's gathering information about that. But aside from that, as you ask, it's really hard to verify the video's authenticity.
So what did he say in the video? Is this one of those negotiating release videos?
This is interesting. The man said that he didn't say who's holding him or what they want specifically. He did say, however, that he was given the opportunity to speak freely. So the message starts lightly. He says March 16th is his birthday and that he loves his family and wants to talk to them, but he can no longer do that. He also delivers a rather grim message, which he said is for his country.
When you are sitting wherever you are in the dark room, suffering with the pain, there is still no one.
Public broadcaster NHK said it spoke on the phone with the man who posted the video, who said he recovered it from someone seeking Yasuda's release. As for a ransom from the Japanese government, Chief Secretary Suga said the government is not aware of any requests. The man believed to be in the video was held in Baghdad in 2004 while working as a freelance journalist. He was criticized for drawing Tokyo into negotiations for his release back then. The nearly 6-year civil war in Syria has cost hundreds of thousands of lives and displaced millions of people. But in addition to the loss of human life, UNESCO says all 6 of the country's World Heritage sites have been badly damaged or destroyed by the conflict. According to an Associated Press report, some sites have been damaged by fighting and shelling, while others have been intentionally blown up or pillaged. The report said Aleppo in the north, the ancient town of Basra in the south, and the Palmyra archaeological site are all damaged or destroyed. Another damaged site, it says, the Croix de Chevalier, one of the most important preserved medieval castles in the world.
It's really a shame, really. There may be some hope that some of these sites could be recovered, Bruce, as UNESCO plans to launch a new task force there.
Well, there's an initiative in the works. They signed an agreement in UNESCO with the Italian government last year to free up some experts who could go to these crises areas and work for conservation of the World Heritage sites. But when you have such dangerous conflict zones, it's hard to believe that anytime soon they really will be able to preserve some of these sites or reverse any of the damage.
Right. You know, war is never good news. Just the fallouts of the war for the people as well as for cultural heritage.
So many different aspects.
All right, Bruce, thank you so much for that.
My pleasure.
Well, you can smell it in the air, you can feel it in the breeze. Yes, spring must be here in Korea, but don't hold me to it. Better yet, we should head over to our Lee Ji-hyun at the Weather Center to ask her for more accurate weather conditions.
Hello, Ganyang. Well, the most colorful time of the year is just around the corner, with the southern regions getting the first peek at spring colors as early as next week.
As early as next week, that's wonderful news. And I heard that Seoul, really the nation's capital, will be no short of places to enjoy blooming flowers, correct?
That's right. And there are 156 sightseeing spots in Seoul that have been selected by the Seoul Metropolitan Government. And they are divided into 5 different categories, including best places for a stroll, locations for spring picnics. And for more information, be sure to visit Seoul City webpage or download the Smart Seoul map on your smartphone. Now, rain is in the forecast for the southern parts of the country starting tonight, which should accelerate blooming, while Jeju Island and the southern coastal regions will receive the most amount of rainfall, up to 60 millimeters by tomorrow evening. In the meantime, the capital should receive a light drizzle tomorrow morning. So lots of clouds will be hovering over the country overnight, and that clouds will keep the air warm. So tomorrow morning is going to be quite warm, as the daily low here in Seoul, Daejeon and Daegu will all start out at 9 degrees Celsius and 11 over in Busan. And as for the daily highs, it's going to be milder than today here in Seoul, topping out at 17, while Busan and Jeju will see a high of 15 and 19 respectively. And it seems like mild weather conditions will persist till the end of the weekend before seasonal average temperatures return early next week. Now that's Korea for you, and here's the international weather for viewers around the world.
Well, spring is a beautiful time for you to be here in Korea and check out the entire nation turn red, pink and yellow and all of your favorite floral colors. That is our broadcast on this Thursday night. I'm Moon Gon-young. Thank you as always for watching, and we hope to see you right back here same time tomorrow on NewsCenter.